FM94, The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play here on The Dark. And it's actually a time to catch up with our good friend Hugo from Tantric. Hugo, how you doing? Last time we chatted was nearly about 4 years ago, I looked up. I'm sure a lot of things have happened since then.
Oh, man, everything's going good. I mean, we've been on tour for about a year, kind of preemptively for this new record, and it just dropped October 5th, and it seems to be doing pretty well so far. Everybody seems to be liking it, and I'm pretty excited about, its life. I hope it really, responds well to listeners.
Hey, let's get into the touring side of things first of all, and how has the touring gone for the last year? Obviously, you've been on the road a lot, and that takes a toll on a guy, doesn't it?
I mean, it does, but to me, touring to me is, I've been doing it for 20 years, and it's something that never really bothered me, and I actually find it very, it feels like the most home to me, more so than even being at my own home. So, I can say that, Tantric's always been tour dogs, both out of necessity and out of want, but so touring has always been good. I love to be on the road. I love to perform. That's what I'm, built for.
How obviously you got this new album that just dropped on Friday, and you were talking about that as we just opened up here. What made you? I guess what inspired you this time to write an album like this, and kind of give us an idea of what you guys put together.
Well, I never stop writing, and collectively this record is made up of songs I've written recently. I partnered up with my good friend Chuck Alkazian, who produced the record, and we hooked up with him about a year ago, and we recorded 3 songs off this record, which was Against My Forever, Angry, and Tether. And then when we, kind of communicated with Pavement and we were ready to put the rest of it out, I'd written some new material, and we kind of just went through the material that we had, the new material, and we just picked a solid 9 songs. But also what's really unique about this record is that Tantric had released or recorded a third record after We Go, and that record was never released because the label in turn folded, and we actually re-recorded one single that was on that record, and we had Todd, the original guitar player, come up and sang on it and played guitar, and that's the first single that's out right now. So there's a little bit of old Tantric in there, not only with members and songwriting, but there's a lot of new stuff as well. So I think that it really touches base on the stuff that Tantric's already known for, and I think it offers something new. I really am proud of the record. I think it's a solid record. It's a record you can play from beginning to end. There's no skippers, and it's like everything in this industry. I've been around for 20 years, and I'd like to see it, do well, obviously, and with radio support, and obviously you guys all supporting us. It's great. It seems like everybody's coming out and giving us the old pat on the back.
It's funny because I've talked to a lot of bands recently that are kind of reinventing themselves once again. Obviously, you mentioned you've been around for 20 years, so you've been in the industry. And so, sometimes things get kind of maybe stale at times and that, but a lot of these bands are making a reappearance again, and rock radio is embracing them because they remember all the great hits they had back in the day. Are you starting to see that too once again with Tantric?
Well, it was the number 1 most added song on some radio, so it seems like it is. It's a whole different climate, and obviously when I first started, I was under the umbrella of Maverick Warner Brothers. Now it's a different type of label, and obviously the way that people buy music and exchange music is completely different. So, It is. I guess it's a wait and see. I'd like to see it, prevail and do as well as our prior stuff has done. And I'm really grateful for the career I've had. And it'd be nice to see this one just kind of make a real nice resurgence after us not releasing a record for 4 years.
The album's titled Mercury Retrograde. What's the meaning behind that? What was the reason why you came up with that name?
Well, I mean, it was personally a tough past 3 years. I just dealt with a lot of personal struggle and basically so much so that I remember once going to some psychic and her telling me, oh, well, the reason why this is all happening is because, your sign is conflicting with this Mercury retrograde, which I started kind of doing some research on, and apparently, unbeknownst to me prior to this, it is a real thing that a lot of people have conflict with, for those who believe in astrology and stuff, and out of no other reason other than it's proven to be true to me, I was like, okay, well, it just seemed like a result of all of these, trials and tribulations that I had gone through in the past 3 years. But, collectively, I guess, these songs were kind of a response, I guess, to all of that and the way I dealt with those things, and I just thought it was an appropriate name.
And of course, your first song that you released to rock radio, Letting Go, must kind of fall right into that, obviously, what you just said.
Absolutely, and, it's hard not to dwell on down in your life, and ultimately, when the sky clears, you'd like to just leave all of the negatives in the past and move on to a better and more positive, future.
Absolutely. We're talking with Hugo from the band Tantric, and of course, Tantric's been around for a while. I'm assuming the fans are enjoying seeing you out once again, rocking, and I'm sure they're liking the new stuff, but I'm also got to believe they like the old stuff too, don't they?
It's really great. I mean, obviously, we've been touring a lot with Puddle of Mud, and that's always great. I love those guys. They've been friends of mine for decades. And, it's cool to see not only, old fans that have been there since the beginning, but those fans' kids are now coming out and, gaining new fans and a new, audience, not only for the people that, are the music was passed down to through parents or whatnot, but, there's people that have just only recently become Tantric fans, and so it's always nice to see that, we're still wanted and relevant, and obviously it's great to be on the road.
One thing you mentioned with Puddle of Mud, I think you guys have kind of called it the Resurrection Tour or something like that, if I remember right. It's great to see. And obviously, Wes Scantland, that he's doing well, too. And that is a huge thing, isn't it, Hugo?
Well, I mean, Wes is such a good friend, and he's such an unbelievable guy. And he's a really genuinely nice person. And in my lifetime, I've seen people only be there for you when times are good and kind of dismiss you when things were going shaky. And I'm so glad to see that Wes, has pulled himself out of his rut that he was in for a while, and seeing all the fans, not only Tantric fans, but Puddle of Mud fans coming up and really embracing his new way of living and, his sobriety. And, it seems that Wes is back and stronger than he's ever been, both, performing wise and just having his head on straight.
Right.
But, everybody falls, and it's how we get back up that I guess defines us.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the one thing that I've noticed too, and it's sad because we've lost a lot of great artists, but it's
So many.
yeah, a lot of it. But it's been a lot of the mental illness that is really a hidden thing out there, and I think it really needs to be addressed more and more every day. And I got to believe, Hugo, you would agree with that.
Well, it really is. I mean, I think that in years before, mental illness was kind of jumbled up with alcohol abuse or,
Right.
or just drug addiction and stuff. But they're two separate things that often work in conjunction with each other. And obviously, we have lost, I mean, so many greats. I mean, from Chris Cornell to, I don't have to go down the list, but
No.
it's
And I know Chris Cornell was a huge influence on you, wasn't he?
Definitely. I mean, it was a huge surprise both when Chris and Chester decided to take their own lives. I mean, it was super sad because it seemed like if it wasn't one thing, like a drug addiction or something, an overdose or something, it was self-inflicted in a completely different way. And I guess people put rock stars up on a pedestal and seemingly they seem to think that everything is always roses and there's a lot of inner turmoil that comes and with that and I unfortunately it takes these tragedies to basically bring them into the limelight, but I guess the only thing that we could do is be a little bit more aware of how it goes down,
Yeah, and I even think of guys that maybe were in the military and that you get a lot of that issue too. And there's obviously we've had a lot of strife over the years where we've sent a lot of these young soldiers overseas. Then they come back and they have a hard time here, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the same thing with music. I mean, these young artists like myself, when I was first on, you're given the world, and everything is at your fingertips, and therefore, when something happens, it's hard for them to deal with normal life, because they go from being super successful to having a lull in their career, and the moments in between are very difficult to deal with as far as just maintaining.
Absolutely.
Unlike many people believe, a lot of people believe it's like, oh, you have a successful record, you're set for life, and that's not necessarily the truth.
No.
And it's something that you have to continue to work on. And honestly, it's definitely a career of passion. It's not necessarily a career that would make any sense to do, voluntarily. But for those of us who are musicians, it's not something that we picked. It's something that picks us. And in my case, I've been doing it for 20 years, and I blinked an eye, and it was just yesterday. But with the support of the radio stations and the support of fans, we find a way of surviving and creating this music that becomes part of people's lives.
I know you're out there trying to survive. Are you trying to help out some of the younger generation get into the industry too and help them survive?
Well, I mean, in instances that I can, I obviously do. I mean, I'll offer always my opinion and offer whatever wisdom I have to help. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to get to where I'm at, or to get into this business, and there's so many different routes that people have traveled. So, I mean, as far as helping people develop their own music, of course, I'm always there. I'll always give a listen to a CD, and offer my opinion, and often produce records on artists on my downtime.
Yeah.
So in that instance, I do, and obviously we offer, when we're doing tours, we we have openers that are locals or what people call baby bands, and that's what we do. But I guess when you see a need, you fill a need.
Right.
That's basically what I do.
What direction, I guess, do you see rock going these days? I know when we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, it was kind of a mess. Is it still that, or is it starting to get itself straightened out a little bit?
I think there's staples of rock that are always going to be consistent. And if you hear rock radio anywhere, you hear, the artists that are always consistently getting played, and I don't think that those will be, evacuated anytime soon. I think there'll always be the Alice in Chains, and there'll always be radio play for those staples of rock. But I think that as far as new bands breaking out, it's a whole different thing, and it's a whole nother monster, But it seems like there's new bands coming out and making an impact. So, more power to them.
Let me ask you this question, Hugo. You've been in the business for 20 years. Is touring your band more important today than it was back then in the day, or not so much?
Well, monetarily, for sure.
Yeah.
It's not even a necessity. It has to be.
Right.
You can't do it without it, because even as much as the illegal downloading and all of that is kind of been tapered down, there's still I remember when my first record came out, on opening weeks, bands would sell 800,000 copies on the first week, and now it's rare for even to see a band go platinum in general. So there's obviously a lot less money flowing here. So touring is the way that you make your money, and in lieu of there being a lot of tour support and extra money that's being put into tours, because the labels in turn aren't making as much money, so they're not putting as much money into the tours. All of that in conjunction, has made it more necessary, at least for you to, if you're a full-time artist like myself, to have a consistent income. You have to tour.
Right.
It is. And if you're an artist that makes a ton of money per show, that's a different story. But Tantric does pretty good, but still, it's not like a band that can just tour a couple of months a year and be done. We have to tour pretty consistently to keep them the roof over the head.
Absolutely. I know we got to let you go here, Hugo, but I guess what's the future for Tantric here in the next couple of months, and for that matter, in the year 2019?
Well, I'd like to see this record have a long life, and hopefully you guys will support us with radio, and hopefully the sky's the limit.
And if people want more information about the band Tantric, or they want to get their hands on the album and that Mercury Retrograde, how can they do so?
Well, Mercury Retrograde is at Walmart's all over, and FYE, and Myers. And you can order it like that through iTunes, Amazon, you name it. Obviously that. And then you can go onto Facebook.com/Tantric and get linked up with our sites and see, where we're playing and come see a show. Obviously supporting a live performance is one of the better ways to support a band. Obviously, there's only a show if there's people there.
Absolutely. And I know you were just recently up here in Minnesota, so maybe we'll get a chance to see you in 2019 again in Minnesota. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. We'll definitely be there.
All right. Thanks so much, Hugo. We're going to play your latest song, Letting Go, and have a great rest of 2018, and good luck with that album, okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
Once again, that is Hugo from the band Tantric. Their latest song is called Letting Go. It's on now. It's on The Dark. It's on FM94.